for the show today, I said, Howie Roseman I think he kind of senses here. The Giants did not give Daniel Jones the fifth-year option. They are going to have a little chaos in the year. Dallas, bad off season. Carson Wentz, a report this week, he's just a bridge. They were really aggressive, and I look at A.J. Brown to Jalen Hurts, and I'm like, I don't know. They haven't drafted receivers well. That felt like a big get for me for Philadelphia.
Yeah, and I think it helps you get more out of Devontae Smith because they're contrasting styles. They've got Dallas Goedert at tight end. Like you said, Miles Sanders in the backfield. Their offensive line's been really good for a long time. So I think it gives you the ability to compete in the here and the now. And then the other thing I think that you have to look at here is getting answers on Jalen Hurts. And I know we talked about this last week with Zach Wilson, and we've talked about it over the last couple of months with Tua Tagovailoa. The Eagles are approaching a pretty critical point here with Jalen Hurts. He's going into his third year. His fourth year is a contract year, and he doesn't have a fifth-year option because he wasn't a first-round pick. And they have 2 first-round picks next year when maybe a C.J. Stroud, a Bryce Young, a Tyler Van Dyke emerges as a true franchise quarterback, which a lot of people thought this year's draft class lacked. And so I think if you're the Eagles, getting A.J. Brown in there, having Devontae Smith in year 2 helps you get answers in 2022 on Jalen Hurts, and that helps you chart the course for 2023. So it does help you in the here and the now. I think Howie Roseman does sense a little bit of an opening there in the NFC East, but it also is going to help him with his long-term plans at quarterback, because the better you are around a young quarterback, and you know this, Colin, the easier it is to get a clear answer on who he is.
Yeah. So, listen, the Cowboys have had an interesting offseason. They've lost a lot of production. An elite pass rusher, a 1,000-yard receiver, a right tackle. I think Cedric Wilson's a really good number 3. And they get a guard, and they get a little defensive. I got to be honest, this morning, I think I would take Philadelphia to win that division. I don't think it's been a good offseason for Dallas. What'd you make of their pick? And Jerry was kind of defensive, showing the draft board. What do you make of it?
Yeah, it didn't look like Steven was very happy with his dad when he showed that draft board. I look at it like kind of the Cowboys going back to their roots here a little bit. And, when they've been successful, and everybody's a product of their own experiences, right? Like in the 90s, how did they win? Well, they won with the triplets, but they won behind a big, powerful offensive line. And then you go back like 13, 14 years ago with Tony Romo. When did they struggle with Romo? It was when they had issues on the offensive line, when that offensive line with Flozell Adams and Leonard Davis got old. And then when did they get successful again? When were they able to get more out of Romo? And when were they able to support Dak Prescott the best? It was when they spent first-round picks in, I think, a 4-year period on 3 offensive linemen in Travis Frederick, Zach Martin, and Tyron Smith. And so, to me, I think this is an acknowledgement that group, that Tyron Smith, Zach Martin group, is starting to age out. Obviously, Lyle Collins is gone now. And this is them investing back into an area where they've always had a foundation when they've been good. And so I understand what you're saying, Colin. They lost, obviously, a couple of receivers that were really important to them. They lost a high-end pass rusher in Randy Gregory that they really wanted to keep. But to me, this is more of a big picture pick where they're looking at it and saying, we need to start taking care of our offensive line because we've already seen guys like Frederick and Collins go out the door, and we need to start preparing for the days when we don't have Zach Martin and Tyron Smith anymore.
All right, about 45 seconds to a minute. Second round's got a lot of good defensive players at the top. A lot of SEC defensive players. Is there a guy I should keep my eye on in the top of the second round, a team or a player? What do you make of it?
Yeah, I think the corners are something to pick. The corners are definitely worth paying attention to in the first 10 picks or so. Andrew Booth, I think a first-round grade for a lot of teams, has a lot of injury issues. He's one. Kyler Gordon, the corner from Washington, who didn't run as fast as people thought he would, but is a really good player, is another. And then I think Nakobe Dean, who's got a ton of medical issues, but was a great player at Georgia. He's somebody to keep an eye on. And, of course, I think the story of this draft, Kenny Pickett's the only quarterback to go in the first round. That leaves 4 guys that I think are top 2 or 3 round picks out there for teams today. So obviously Malik Willis, Matt Corral, Sam Howell, and Desmond Ridder are guys to watch. And Ridder, could go as high as the 35th pick to Tennessee. There's a great relationship there, of course, between the Titans head coach, Mike Vrabel, and Ridder's college coach, Luke Fickell. So keep an eye on that one early in the night tonight.
Monday morning quarterback Albert Breer. Great seeing you, my man. This is fun. Thanks.
Thanks, Colin.
You bet. Really enjoyed last night.
The Herd Lie News.
So I got to talk about the Cowboys. When you have one of these big brands, Ohio State football, Cowboys, Lakers, Yankees, people often say, you guys talk about them even when they're not good. You're right. There's a reason. The Cowboys are usually the highest rated telecast on every single network. NFL Network, Fox, they're on Monday Night Football. You're right, we do. The downside to being the big brand is when you're struggling, we also talk about you more than we would talk about the Jaguars struggling or the Detroit Lions struggling or the Bengals struggling. So when the Lakers fall apart and have like a 7-8 year stretch where they're a mess, we bang on them a lot, even though they're not, a top team. And Dallas had a really poor offseason. Not good. The Lakers have addressed their frustrations by leaking stuff to the media and getting really defensive about an HBO movie about their team. Weird. And Dallas got suddenly very defensive. Jerry Jones, with a smile on his face, the billionaire from Texas, got very defensive last night when asked about drafting a guard, Tyler Smith, who people had concerns over.
Let me put it like this. We have both of them. This was printed 3 days ago, below him. Both of those players are below him. Can you see that?
Don't show him that.
I'm not going to show him.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious. No, we really did have them rated below him. No, we really did. Both of them.
I probably wouldn't have shown everybody my draft board. Little odd. Like the Lakers getting worked up over an HBO show. Little odd. Jerry also loved Jalen Smith's contract. The linebacker, he's no longer on a team. He loved Zeke's contract. He's a current albatross. He loved Dak's contract, which, by the way, is a $49 million cap hit next year. He likes a lot of things. He also defended keeping Mike McCarthy, although that draw that ran out the clock was really, really bad. Listen, Dallas lost Amari Cooper, 1,000-yard receiver. There is absolute data to suggest Dak's not as good without Amari. And for letting go of him, they got a 5th-round pick. They got fleeced. Look what Kansas City got for their receiver. So the Lakers and the Cowboys, they got too many friends and family. It's like high school wrestling matches. The only people that go are girlfriends and family. You ever seen that? That's what the Cowboys and the Lakers have. Too much friends and family. Running, not enough outside perspective. And the Cowboys are all run by the Jones family. I don't have a problem with them having the final say. I'd like other voices in the room, more eyes and ears from somebody else. Lakers, same thing. Friends and family of the organization. And both are getting very, very defensive. Listen, this is not deniable what I'm about to say. A lot of production left the Cowboys this offseason. Amari Cooper is 1,000 yards, one of the best route runners in the league. Randy Gregory is inconsistent, but when he's on, he is a handful to block. Cedric Wilson's one of the more interesting number 3 wide receivers in the NFL. They're starting right tackle Lyle Collins and Connor Williams, who's not great, okay, but he played a lot in the offensive line. And in return, after losing all that production, they got a guard from Tulsa, who may be great. But I watched all the draft stuff last night, and he is considered to be a little bit of a project. They always say if you want to lose weight, you got more calories. The calories have to come down, and then the exercise has to go up, right? It's same with saving money. You spend less and you make more, right? Same in the NFL. You lose a ton of production, and you don't bring any in. It's a problem. It's not terribly complicated. Is that Randy Gregory, Amari Cooper, Cedric Wilson, Lyle Collins. And this is an organization where you fans don't love the coach. You don't. We know close games, Mike McCarthy, it is nail-biting time. We don't feel that way in the NFC with Matt LaFleur or Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan. We feel that way with Mike McCarthy. So these big brands, they do get talked about a lot when they're not relevant. I get it. Your complaints are heard and understood, but this is who they are. But they also get these big franchises when they're struggling. They get whacked a little bit more and talked about. Lakers, Cowboys, both feel to me like deep down they know. Hadn't been a good last 12 months. They both know it. Just getting a little odd in defending it. New York teams had a good night, or did they? Chris Paul was amazing. I love Chris Paul. I really do.
Herd Line News.
Well, the number one overall pick last night was Trayvon Walker, and there were a couple questions about who the Jags would select with the first overall pick. And Doug Peterson was asked how they decided to go with Trayvon Walker.
There was a lot of pre-draft speculation that you, Trent, favored Trayvon, and that you, Doug, favored the offensive lineman, Iquanu. Could you talk a little bit about how you arrived at this decision? I mean, did you guys actually have some disagreement about this?
Can I just stop you?
Yeah.
There was never, this thing was never split.
Okay, I'm not saying it was. I'm just saying that.
I know it's out, and I just want to just go out on record and say it was never that way. I don't know where that came from.
There was also some talk, and we think we talked about it yesterday, that the owner was leaning towards Hutchinson and that Balky wanted Walker. But I also think there's conversations that go on, and people, are going to fight for the guy that they think should be the pick, and that's the coach is going to have their opinion, and the GM's going to have their opinion, and I'm sure the owner has their opinion, and whoever makes the final say, or you guys come to an agreement. So I could see these things leaking out. There was not a standalone consensus number one pick in the way that it was Joe Burrow or we've had in past drafts. So I could see this being a conversation.
Georgia had 5 defensive players taken.
Yeah, Georgia had a nice draft.
So, first of all, we said last year we thought the Georgia defense was as good as any defense you and I had ever seen.